Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. So here are the three big stories for today. We're not really going to talk about Putin arriving in Belarus for a two-day visit with Lukashenko. Now, this is the second time since the war began, I believe, that Putin actually went to Belarus. That's the big story, because usually Lukashenko goes to Moscow rather than Putin going to Minsk. But the story was kind of nothing. I mean, I haven't seen anything really meaningful out of this yet, but I'll keep you posted if I see something. Okay, first big story. Ukraine hopes to ink a security pact with Japan before the July NATO summit. So we hope to hold one more round of negotiations so that we sign an agreement in the short term before, and the summit is going to be in Washington, D.C. on July 9th. Japan will join Britain, Canada, France, and 6 other countries, and I'll show you which ones. And having such a bilateral agreement for security deal for Ukraine. Now, Japan, under the security pact, will provide humanitarian, energy support, cybersecurity capabilities. They've also given $12 billion in financial aid from Tokyo since the full-scale invasion began. But most importantly, they would be the first Indo-Pacific country to sign on to such an agreement, which would be very meaningful. Okay, so I went to Perplexity and got a list of which other countries, and this all rings true. If something's off, you can tell me, but the UK, Germany, France, Denmark, Canada, Italy, Netherlands, Finland, Latvia. And so, yeah, all these bilateral agreements are making it increasingly more difficult for Russia to be able to be successful in the long term. Okay, second big story. Everyone will fight. Ukrainian men weigh their options as a new draft law comes into effect. So it started on May 18th. They have to face comply or face some tough penalties. And if they comply, and instead of being drafted, they can kind of pick what they're going to do. Ukraine has made no secret of the urgent need to recruit more people as it tries to defend itself against the Russian aggression. While the government doesn't reveal the number of dead and wounded, estimates made by experts speak of hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides of the conflict. That's true. We just saw that 500,000 was the mark that Ukraine had officially for Russian casualties. I think maybe Ukraine is half of that, maybe a little bit more than half of that. I think anybody who's saying that, there's 5-1 or 10-1 or 20-1, they're trying to sell you something. You have to triangulate on the facts. Okay, if there had been 1,000 or 1,500 more servicemen in Avdiivka, we would have protected the weak spots through which the enemy entered. If we had more people, we would have held out much longer. Soldiers need proper rest, and none of them have been getting rest over the last few months. They've been at the front line perpetually since the war began. We still want people to join voluntarily because there's a big difference between someone who was drafted into the army and someone who went to defend their homeland. And then they said, if you're a specialist, you can still be useful in whatever your occupation was. Specialists, for example, in civilian life, if you're in IT or accounting or project management or cooks or clerks, the armed forces need you, and they can also make a fairly large contribution to the common victory by joining the armed forces. We have a special drone unit who are a little further away from the front line, people who are good at electronics, even those who like to play computer games will quickly master that specialty, and drone warfare has changed everything. Okay. Last big story, Trump vows to stop Biden's march to World War III. So he's speaking at the Libertarian Conference. Now this is an RT, but it's still quoting what he said at this Libertarian Conference. He named the main priorities as ending the border crisis, stopping the waste of U.S. taxpayer dollars on funding foreign militaries, and protecting American sovereignty from the creeping hands of global government. We will say, this is a quote now, we will say freedom, prosperity, and capitalism in America, Trump told the cheering crowd. And before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled, so we quit spending hundreds of billions of dollars to fight other people's wars, and so that we start immediately saving thousands and thousands of lives, he added. I'm committed to restoring peace and stability and to stopping Joe Biden's march toward World War III. Okay, but he's going to potentially save these lives at the expense of slavery for all of the people living in these occupied territories. In Zaporizhia, they just enacted a draft in Russian-occupied Ukrainian soil, Zaporizhia. So that's the trade-off, I suppose. And this line here, I'm committed to restoring peace and stability and stopping Joe Biden's march toward World War III. I think showing this weakness is going to make it more likely that you encounter something like a World War III rather than less. Okay, last little thing I want to show you. It's easy to be a communist in the free country, right? You can be communist if you like in the US. But try being free in a communist country, right? Try protesting for Ukraine in Russia. See how well that works for you. Okay, thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.